Thank you for joining our training session for the second day for the Cloud Security Essentials. In the first session, we covered some concepts related to the IT security, and we covered some other concepts relating to the computing cloud concepts. We can start very quickly to highlight these concepts for the cloud computing, like the cloud application portability, cloud computing, data portability. And as you can remember, we mentioned that when we say portability in cloud, this means that it's one of two options, that the data or the application, it can be moved from one cloud provider to another cloud provider, or it can be moved from one hosting model to another hosting model, from public to private or whatever. These are the main explanation of the portability, and this is very important because it will come to another concept, very important concept of lock-in. And we mentioned day before yesterday that the locked-in means that if you are not able to move from one cloud service provider to another for any technical reasons, it may be applications, it's not compatible with other application in the market, or it may be data, it's in a specific or proprietary format, when it cannot be migrated to another cloud service provider, when this means that you are locked in, when this means that you will not be able to move your data to other cloud provider, and this it will be a problem because you have to be stuck with this cloud service provider, and in this case, you will not be able to migrate your data to different cloud service providers or maybe other organization which it can host your data. Okay. The other model or the other concept which we want to discuss is the cloud deployment model. What is the cloud deployment model? I want to postpone this definition because we will cover it in more details later in the next few slides. Cloud service, as we mentioned, that this is the service which is running on the cloud. Right now, virtually, I'm not saying actually, virtually, we can say that there are an infinite number of services running on the cloud. And there is something called right now XaaS, which is written like that, XaaS. This means that everything as service. Everything as a service. When it is not only software as a service or infrastructure as a service, or now whatever any service you can think about it, it can be represented on the cloud. Because by the end of the day, as we mentioned, what is the cloud? The cloud, it's a data center. By the end of the day, it's a data center. It may be located in a different country, it may be located in a different location, or the same country where we are living, it depends. But by the end of the day, it's a service, or it's a data center, and it's hosting applications, it's hosting services, it has data center equipment, and so on. Then whatever any device or the service which we are installing in the data centers, it can be utilized or used in the same data center as the cloud. When in some situation you may have, for example, disaster recovery as a service, or you may have IP telephony as a service, and so on. And when we say cloud service, this means that whatever any service, it will run on the cloud. Even software, hardware, disaster recovery, business continuity, whatever it is. Cloud service category, we will cover this later in the next few slides. Public cloud, private cloud, community cloud. I don't want to repeat myself again. It will be covered in full details in the next few slides. Okay, measured services. Don't worry, all the expressions starting from public cloud till SaaS, it will be covered in more details in the next few slides. Measured services, this one of the characteristics of the cloud. It is very important. You have to keep in your mind that one of the characteristics of the cloud service, that it's a measured service. Why? Because in the cloud concepts or cloud computing concepts, we have what we call pay as you use or pay as you go. When you are not paying for any service except if you are really use it. This does not mean that, okay, I rent a server in a cloud service provider, but I never started. Then this means that you will never pay for it. Then number one, it must be a measured service. Why it must be measured service? It must be measured to know the utilization of the processors, of the memory, of the storage. If you are using single processor, or you may have a burst in the data and the application processing when you hired, or you got another processor, when your original rent for the server, it was only one processor, but now you reached for two when the processing power increases and so on. Then measured services for payment, for invoicing. This number one. Number two, for performance. Because of course you must have a service level agreement. You must have a service level agreement with the cloud service provider. If you have a cloud service provider agreement, then this service must be measured to understand the performance of the applications, of the services, and so on. In some situation, you may say that, okay, cloud service provider, please, I want the processor that it will never, utilization of the processor, it will never increase than 70%. Okay, and the memory, it will be 70 to 80%. That's great. Then this means that we need, again, the measured services. Then we will be able to check the performance of the service and to check the achievement of the service level agreement conditions. Multi-tenancy. Multi-tenancy, this is very, very, very important expression, and this is one of the components or the characteristics of the cloud concepts. But let me ask you first, what do you know about multi-tenancy? What do you know about multi-tenancy? Do you know anything about multi-tenancy?
One organization having their data in with different cloud service providers.
Sorry, can you repeat again, please?
One single organization who hire different cloud service providers based on the need.
Okay, any other definitions? Okay, multi-tenancy, it's very simple. You remembered last session when we mentioned that one of the characteristics of the cloud computing that it's shared resource pool, shared resources pool. Then when we say shared resources pool, this means that there are more than one customer is using these resources because they are shared. Then when we say multi-tenancy, this means that more than one customer, they are connecting at the same time and we are using the cloud computing resources. Then multi-tenancy, this means that multiple users or multiple customers, we are connecting to the shared resources and we are using them at the same time. And when we will mention multi-tenancy, then there is one point it will come to your mind. What about security? If I suppose that I am connected to one of the cloud service provider and my competitor is connected to the same cloud service provider, it can happen. Then this means that he would be able to see my data? Of course not. Why? Because each cloud service provider, they have to provide the appropriate isolation for your data and application. But this is not easy. It's a complicated matter. We have to define what type of isolation do you need? Is it the default one which is provided by the cloud service provider, or we have to provide some additional security countermeasures? This it will be very important because this it will be additional. I think during the next few slides, we will have a look on the multi-tenancy and the security points which we have to highlight it, especially when we'll start to speak about the security of data and applications. Of course, again, just I want to remind you, my friends, if you have any question, please don't hesitate to ask, and you can type whatever any questions you have in the chat. I open the chat in front of me, and I will answer whatever any questions you want. And I really appreciate if some of you or any one of you, he can send the link of the training to our group, Cloud Security Essential 1, because I can see that there is someone, he is sending that the Zoom link, it's not working. I'm afraid that he is using a wrong one. I really appreciate if any one of you, he can send the Zoom link because I will not be able to concentrate on both of them.
Yeah, I'm just sending, Osama, don't worry.
Okay, yeah. Thank you very much, Rahab. Thank you for sending the link. I really appreciate it. Okay.
It's Pankaj, yeah.
Pankaj, yeah, Pankaj and Rahab as well, because, you know, I opened my mobile in front of me. I'm really sorry because, you know, now I have to look on the presentation on my mobile for the chatting, on the tablet to see what you are seeing in front of you on your screen beside the chat screen. Then I really appreciate if you forgive me if I missed some names. Okay, on-demand self-service. On-demand self-service, we explained this feature last session, and we mentioned that this is again one of the characteristics of the cloud computing. My friends, you will find me that I am saying characteristics of cloud computing, Call this, as you will see in the next slide, I will tell you, please don't confuse the cloud computing with the virtualization in general. Because there are a lot of people, they are saying, okay, we have virtualization. By the end of the day, cloud computing is virtualization, right? Because cloud computing depends upon sources, shared resource pool. Then this means that shared research pool. This is the same concept of the cloud computing and the virtualization. But again, we will have one slide which it will show you all this information, and when you will say that this is a cloud computing and when this is considered as normal virtualization. On-demand self-service is again one of the concepts of the cloud computing. And when we say one of the cloud computing self-service, this means that, as we mentioned, anyone, he has the permission, he is authorized, he will be able to log into the cloud service provider management plane, and he will be able to create a new server, a new service, a new tool, whatever he wants, as soon as he has the permission to do this, without any interaction with the cloud service provider. And this is saying that it will make life very easy, especially as we see in the next few slides, with some services where if you want to, for example, you are a developer and you are working on Windows, for example, but you want to check your application running on Linux, then in the normal situation, you have to buy a new server, install Linux, make sure that everything is up and running, install your application, and the purchasing step, it may take 6 to 8 weeks in some organizations. But with cloud computing, it will take 6 minutes. Really 6 minutes, because what you have to do that, okay, cloud service provider, I need this service, I need number of processors, I need this amount of storage, I want this amount of RAM, I want Linux version, so on. So thank you very much. Your service, it's up and running, and everything, it's great. Okay, resource pooling, we covered this in details before. Reversibility. Yes, reversibility, again, one of the important expressions. And here I want to highlight these expressions because, you know, when you will work in the field, I want you to be familiar with these expressions. And when you will sit with any cloud service providers or with your organization, then you can explain to them professionally what does cloud computing concepts means. Reversibility means that your ability to remove all your data and applications from the cloud service provider if you decide that you will terminate the contract with this provider for any reasons. You are not satisfied with the service, you want to move to another one, or whatever the reason, but you have to make sure that all your data, applications, I mean, are deleted properly from the cloud service provider, and he has no access for this information. How you can do this? This we will cover it in this section of the data security. Before going further, do you have any questions? Okay. And as we mentioned, if you want any question, you can type in the chat. For the cloud computing characteristics, number one, on-demand self-service. There is no need to interact with the cloud service provider for any resources or service provisioning. You can connect to the cloud service provider management plane. You can create your server and you can create your services within few minutes. Everything, it will be up and running. Broad network access. This again, one of the really good concepts of the cloud. First of all, whatever any device you have, it can be used to access your cloud computing infrastructure. It may be notebook with Windows or Mac, desktop, mobile, tablet, running iOS or Android. We don't have any problem. Any one of them, it can work very easily and smoothly, and you can access the data. And of course, if you want to imagine this, I'm quite sure that some of you are using maybe iCloud or Android, whatever any Android application, or maybe box.com or OneDrive or whatever any of these cloud application, or maybe Office 365, one of the great examples, Office 365. And just imagine before, when we have to install the Office on our desktops or notebooks, we have to install maybe 1 tera or whatever, 1 gig or 2 gig data and information and so on. But now, without any installation, just log into the browser, open the browser, type office365.com, type your username and passwords, you will be able to access all your data. Whatever this, it's coming from desktop, laptop, tablets, mobiles, and so on. When we broad network access, it is independent on the operating systems and independent on the device from where you are accessing the service. The third characteristics is the resource pooling. And as we mentioned, resource pooling, this shared resource pooling, shared resources out of processors, memory, storage, load balancers, other devices for business continuity and disaster recovery, and so on. Then all these devices, it can be shared with the customers, and this is one of the characteristics of the cloud computing. And as we mentioned in the first slide today, we call it what the multi-tenancy. This is very important, the multi-tenancy. Okay, rapid elasticity. Yes, this is again very important. And just instead of explaining technical expressions, which it may be very difficult, just I want to give you one of the examples which I faced in my experience. We had one of our customers, he is working as a development company, and we are working with some specific infrastructure. We have a specific development platform, and this platform, it's configured to run on a specific browser, run on a specific operating system, and so on. But when they start to their business to grow, they found that they are not able to work with this concept related for the specific browser and the specific operating system and so on, because their customers, they are hybrid. Some of them, they have maybe Windows 10, others Windows 8. There are some still they have maybe Windows 7. Some of them they prefer the Edge browser. Others they still using the Internet Explorer. Others they are saying no, we want to use Chrome or whatever. When they found that it will not work, and unfortunately, during the coding, they have this information or the user experience which appears to them on the screen during the running the application. It's unfortunately hard-coded. Yani they have some features, it depends upon the browser itself or the operating system or whatever. When we said, okay, we are not able to continue with the same mode, and we have to change this concept, and we have to find out alternative way to do this exercise. When they came to us and they said, okay, we have the concept, please, we want to rent some machines from your side, but we will be able to run these applications. We told them there is no need to rent any machine. What you have to do, make any subscription with any one of the cloud service providers, well-known ones, AWS or Google or whatever. Any one of them, they will provide you the servers. Just mention, we need this type of servers with this configuration and these operating systems. And even if you want to change the platform of the programming, they can provide you something standard as .NET or C++ or whatever the platform which it will be suitable to make the changes according to your needs and requirements. It was a great idea for them. Why? Because they said, believe it or not, we were able to prepare, I think, 8 or 10 servers and desktops as well within one day. Yani they prepared the servers, they installed the applications, and they installed the operating systems, and they installed the desktops with the operating systems with different browsers, and all this, it was done within one day only, and they start their test. And they mentioned that the beauty here, that if we get another idea that, okay, let's use another idea. For example, we want to access the application from a browser, from a mobile or from a tablet, which it's not related to Windows or whatever, then how it will look like. Then we are able to do this exercise, and there is really elasticity and very rapid elasticity in the applications, the service, and all this stuff. Finally, measured service, and I think we covered this in the basics and concepts, that the measured service, it will be used for multiple things. First of all, for invoicing. Number two, for performance measuring. Number three, for the SLA agreement achievement, conditions achieved. Okay. Now we will move to another component for the cloud services. Just I want to ask you one question, if you don't mind. Please let me know when you are able to see the
Haven't seen it yet.
Not yet?
Yes, not yet.
Okay. I think now it came, right?
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes.
Just I want to make sure that we are moving on the same page. As we mentioned, we are not here just to go through the slides. I want you, when you finish this training course, you feel that you can add a value for your organization and you can understand. Then my questions, are you interested in this course? Are you interested in the information? Can you feel that we are moving in a good pace, or we have to moving with little pace? Then your feedback is very important for me then to decide how I will continue the course. The polling, it will be available for 90 seconds.
Actually, I feel the pace is good.
Sorry?
I feel the pace what we are moving is right to me.
Okay.
And we are covering the concepts in steps, which is really nice.
Okay.
I couldn't find anything to say as an improvement area or anything that I expect more.
Okay. Also for the others, please don't hesitate if you have any idea or something. It's a win-win relation, because as we mentioned that this is for our benefits, both of us. I want the training to succeed, and also I want you to make sure that you are able to understand. Okay, I think we finished the polling, and I think it's okay. Two of you, or one of you, he did not voting. Anyway, okay, that's good. Okay, let's continue. Alhamdulillah, you are satisfied, and I think we can continue right now. Okay. Wow, we start to come to some slides which it will be very interesting, and you will hear about these expressions very commonly and many times in your field, and unfortunately, in some situation, it may not be clear. You will find what we call infrastructure service capability, platform service capability, software service capability. What does it mean? Look here, this diagram, I like it very much. I like this illustration very, very, very much. And it's make life very easy to you. Look here, if we are on-prem, if we are on-prem, if we are on-prem, on-prem means that it's your data center, on premises, your data center. You will own or you will manage all these equipments. This is under your responsibility. You are accountable for all these components, starting from networking, storage, servers, virtualization, operating system, middleware, runtime, data, and applications. Okay? If you move to IaaS as infrastructure as a service, what does IaaS, or sometimes it's pronounced ES. Sometimes you will hear me say ES. ES, this means that you are hiring the ES service, or what we call it, the infrastructure as a service, that you want only to host your infrastructure as a cloud service provider, not any applications or programming languages or anything. You said, okay, your manager or your top management, they came and they said, okay, you are the IT manager, and we are telling you that we are starting as a small company. And we don't want to make an investment in a data center. Data center, this will be a complicated issue. Just imagine, data center means space. Data center means AC. Data center means power. Data center means redundancy. Data center means cabinet. Data center means security guards. Data center means redundancy for every environment component, as AC, as power, power generator, and so on. Then all these things must be provided before even think about the equipment, the networks, the servers, the applications, and all these things. This it will cost you a small fortune. Then they said, no, we will save all these efforts, and we will hire, or sorry, not hire, we will acquire some servers and services from the cloud service provider. What do we want to do? We want to run some applications, and we will develop these applications on site. Great. Then what do we need? We need network, we need storage, we need servers, we need virtualization, we need operating systems, we need the runtime and middleware, and the development platform for the applications, and finally the data and the applications which you develop. In the ES, you will find that first 4 areas will be managed by whom? Cloud service provider. It will be managed by the cloud service provider. And the other components, starting from the operating systems till the application, it will be managed by yourself as the customer. Then the first 4 layers, network, storage, servers, virtualization, it's not my responsibility. I don't know anything about them. I don't care about them. I'm not responsible about these areas. It will be under the responsibility of the cloud service provider. He have to install the server, make virtualization, install operating system. Not operating system. Operating system, it's your responsibility. Make the server ready for operating system and all these things. Then by the end of the day, this means that you acquire hardware equipment from the cloud service provider. Okay? When we go to the second model, here, which we call it PaaS, which is platform as a service, it will be the same as the IaaS. It will be exactly the same as the IaaS. There is no difference. But what is the difference? The difference, your management, they will tell you, Osama, we don't want to go to the dilemma of the programming languages and the middleware and the runtime libraries and all this stuff. This it will cost us a small fortune to provide the platform for programming and .NET, and this it will be the license. It will be per server or maybe per processor and per user, and this it will cost us small fortune, and we don't want to go through this headache at all. Then what can I do? Very simple. I tell them, okay, no problem. Forget about all these things. We will ask the cloud service provider who is providing the server to us that we want .NET. Then he will install .NET and he will install whatever the middleware and runtime libraries, everything we require on these servers, and they will will be responsible to provide this information for us and products, and it will be licensed as well. And all what we have to do, that we have to pay the monthly license or subscription to them. Okay, great. Then the cloud service provider, it will be responsible for what? In the PaaS, it will be responsible for networking, storage, servers, virtualizations, operating systems, runtime, and so on. Then, great. Then this means that as IT manager, I am not responsible for all this headache. I rented the servers, they installed the .NET with the license, and they give me the libraries for the programming and everything. Then my responsibility only, it will be develop the applications and manage the data. Develop the applications and manage the data, as you can see here. Then this it will be my responsibility, data and applications only. Great, this good news. Okay. Not all organizations have developers, and not all organizations are able to configure their, or not configure, I mean develop their applications and services. And they want to utilize the experience of the third parties in developing applications and services. Do you think that if I want to have a word processor, then I have to do development for a word processor? I think I will be crazy. Why? Because I can utilize the word, for example. This, it will be great. And also I can utilize the other applications in the same suite as the Excel, PowerPoint, so and so, and all the data. It can be mixed and matched between the different applications, and the results, it will be great. Especially this program, it's or Office 365, it's a great program. Then the cloud service provider, they can help you to minimize all this headache. In the first step, we mentioned that you can acquire the hardware. In step number 2, you can acquire the platform and applications, and you can develop your application. In step number 3, we said there is no need to make all this headache. Why? Because we said, okay, there is no need to develop your application yourself. Just tell me, what do you want? You are a new organization. Tell me, what do you want? Let's share some experience together, my friends. Tell me, if you are an organization, new established organization, and you want to provide services to your customers. What are the services you want to provide? Just you can add it in the chat if you don't want to say verbally.
Hi, Osama. Me as a company, I would think of infrastructure because these are very in huge investments. So networking would be the one which I could think of in terms of infrastructure service capability. In the platform, I think the runtime also would be the one which I would like to take it up by the cloud provider, and in this software services application would be the one which they could take it off.
Okay, thank you, Pankaj. Any other feedback?
I didn't feel to make any changes. Like as such, it looks good because infrastructure means the entire infrastructure is given. So you just take care of the rest, and then your platform, it's again your application and data, it remains in your company. Because like your company could have can have many critical data, they can have some crown jewels, so it's always better to keep those kind of requirements. It could be kept as application and data, you can keep it separate. It could be some high secure data or the softwares that run towards the security applications which you feel to protect your own company patterns and stuff, it can remain in the company. And software as a service, then for example, like if it is on a hospital thing and where they split, the data could be separate. So you can have a combination of platform and PaaS and SaaS. So I feel the split is perfect, and depending on what you want, as a mix and match, a company can have a portion of IaaS, a portion of PaaS, a portion of SaaS. That's what I feel.
Okay, any other feedback? Any other opinion? Do we have anyone of the trainees here working in health environment?
I worked for a healthcare company, but I didn't work on the health environment.
I was the part of health, data, wherein I was into a compliance called HIPAA. So I do know some of the healthcare data as to how they presume their
Okay,
data actually.
okay, great. When we speak about these requirements, I am afraid that you are a little bit confusing here in the concept. You are speaking about hybrid. Hybrid, it's not IaaS and PaaS. This is not hybrid. This it's not hybrid. Hybrid, this we will come to the definition of the hybrid later. When we are speaking about the cloud service capabilities, and when we say what is the service you require, it will be IaaS or PaaS or SaaS. One of these elements only. It's not hybrid here. Hybrid, it's not valid here. We will cover hybrid later. Then, as we can see, when we say that we are having the concept of with service which we require, we may require email. We may require word processing. We may require CRM. We may require databases. We may require whatever any of these things. And all these things, it can be provided under the SaaS. And this means that we will provide a lot of money for the organization. There is no need for the infrastructure, data centers, applications, and programming, and all this stuff. Okay? Then you have to understand the differences between the IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. IaaS, this it will be the hardware infrastructure. PaaS, it will be a platform for developing application, and SaaS, it will be the everything it will be provided by the cloud service provider as Office 365. What you have to do, only what you are required, that to get your mobile or your device to access this data. And access, I mean the application. There is no need to understand about network, storage, server, middleware, application, nothing. All you have to get the browser, then you will be able to access the data. Okay, but when we say the infrastructure as a service, this means that the service capabilities is scalability, that it's scalable. Now you can have one server, tomorrow you can have multiple servers, 3 servers, 5 servers. You can increase the servers vertically or horizontally. You can increase the configuration of the server, and these services upgrade. It's very easy, as we mentioned. It can be defined automatically, or it can be configured through the management plan for the cloud service provider. And you are saving the cost of ownership of physical hardware. You don't have any cost of the hardware. There is no cost for the data center and data center facilities, no cost for the servers. You have to pay only the license for using these devices. Also, the high availability. This is, again, a very important point in the cloud service providers, because in the cloud service provider, you have to discuss with your cloud service provider, what about if the data center which is hosting my data, it will be down. Usually, enterprise cloud service providers, we will not provide this service only for one data center, multiple data center. When if one of the data center is down, then automatically it will take over to the second one, fill over to the second one, and you will not feel anything. It may be a delay for a few seconds, and automatically you will be transferred into a different data center, and you will continue the operation and working. Here, if you are speaking about an organization and on-site data center, high availability, it may cost you double the cost of the normal data centers, because you have to provide redundancy for each and every device. Physical security requirements. We don't need any physical security requirements. Physical security requirements for the data center, I don't need it. I don't have a data center. Well, I don't need any fences. I don't need any lights. I don't need any, what we can say, guards, CCTV, power surger, and all these physical security requirements. They are meaningless. I mean, there is no need for it at all with the cloud service provider. You are saving a lot of money here. Also, location and access dependence. I don't have any dependency on the location and the access. In some situation, your company may have multiple locations across the world, or maybe across the same country, when all of them, we can access the applications from the cloud service provider at the same time with the same capabilities without any differences. And this, it will not be the same if you have the local cloud service provider, local database or local data center, I mean, because each one of them, it may require some updates, versioning, and so on. When each data center, it requires its own operations. But in the IaaS, we don't have any dependency on your location and access. And even if you are traveling or the top management are traveling, again, they are able to access their services through the internet to the cloud service providers. Metered usage, or as we mentioned, we measured services, and this we cover it. And of course, the cloud service provider, it can provide the potential for green data center. Of course, it's not a mandatory point for cloud service providers, but they are considered as nice to have or a good feature, which the cloud service provider, we use it as a marketing issue in their marketing campaign. In the PaaS,
Osama, just the previous slide before. Metered usage, you said, based on the usage, it is the cost to the company, correct?
Yes.
And when I say like potential for green data center, what does it mean to?
Potential green data center is a new concept in the IT that it's not harming the nature. And we have power constraints, and it's not generating any pollution for the nature and so on.
Oh, okay. So
and
it is
this is a
basically
concept in the data centers for protecting the environment and the against pollution.
Okay, so it's basically like one center where when you get the supply from that center for all these things, which is like one place is polluted and it is not polluting the multiple location.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. We pass auto scaling. We mentioned the auto scaling that you may have one server with 3 processors, 4 processors, and due to some processing of your applications, or you may rendering some videos, it requires more processor, then automatically it can be use 5 or 6 processors at the same time, and after the processing it's finished, these 2 additional processor, it will go back to the resource pool, and it can be accessed by a different customer. Multiple host environment. What is multiple host environment? Usually, if you have local data center and support, you will find that you have single environment. What do you mean by single environment? That the desktop, for example, it will be Windows 10, 8 GB RAM, 250 GB hard disk, and so on. And with specific applications, then the help desk or service desk, it will be able to serve the user without any problems, because we want to unify the infrastructure. Then we will be able to provide the services required for the users. In the past, we don't have this scenario. In the past, we can have multiple host environment, and on the other hand, also you can have in the cloud service provider itself, it can host multiple servers, and you can run your application on a Windows server, on a Linux server, on whatever any operating system, other operating system. Then this means that the multiple hosting feature, it will be enabled easily in the cloud service provider when you are using the PaaS. Also, you can choose your environment. It can be specific desktops with for accessing the application, or specific servers, or whatever the hardware you require. Of course, the service, it will be flexible because you can increase the resources. It can add automatically the auto scaling and all this stuff which we explained before. Ease of upgrade. The upgrade here, it's very easy. What do you mean by upgrade? The upgrade that you have an image, for example, Windows 10, or it may be have Office 365, or we may have whatever any upgrade you require on the software level or hardware level. We will discuss this in more details during the infrastructure security, but just I want to highlight some point here. Suppose that the cloud service provider, my friends, we have 1 million server. How do you think that they are upgrading their servers?
Microsoft server update services, something like that?
No.
It's a push.
No, 1 million server. Just imagine if I want to upgrade 1 million server, how long it will take. Ease of upgrades. We will discover this. I will leave you just to think about it till we will cover it in the next few slides. Not few slides, it may be next day. Cost effective, as we mentioned, you are saving a lot of cost in the hardware and software. Ease of access and ease of use. And of course, the licensing. You are not caring about licensing. The licensing, it will be paid as a part of the monthly subscription. For the SaaS, support cost and effort. You are save the support costs and effort, the operation cost. Just think, the cloud service provider is responsible for the servers, for the infrastructure, for the application, for development, application, and data. Everything is responsible for it. Then, why do you need any support cost? You don't need any operations. Only the operation which you may require that you help your user to open web browser, then to be able to access the cloud service provider infrastructure. Reduced overall cost, because you don't have to pay for servers, you don't have to pay for the license of the operating systems, you don't have to pay for the license of the software, you don't have to pay for storage, you don't have to pay for backup, you don't have to pay for operations, you don't have to pay for anything. All these things, it will be hosted and managed by the cloud service provider. And as you can see, just imagine if I tell you, please, I want you to go to the market and buy Windows, not Windows, I mean Office 2016. Then you will say, okay, it will cost me around $400 or $500. But now, how much the Office 365 subscription it will cost you? I am doing a family subscription for 4 users. I think I am paying, I'm not sure, maybe $20 or $30. I'm not sure, something like that. Then this means that it's used in the overall cost and the license. Ease of use and administration. Actually, there is no administration. You don't need any administration. The only thing you may require that to help your user to access the application. Ease of use, of course, it's very easy. Just open the browser, go ahead, start your application. And the standardization. The standardization, this is one of the important points, because whatever number of offices or data centers or locations you have, all of them will access the same application. The same application from the cloud service provider. And this means that all of them, they will access the same version or the standard version for all of the users or locations. It may be inside the same country or across different countries. Okay, I think we deserve 10 minutes break. Okay. The other topic which we will discuss about now, it will be the deployment model. And this, again, an important topic which I want you to understand very well. We have 4 different concepts or deployment models in the cloud: public, private, community, and hybrid. If we will speak about the public cloud, this means that it's generally public. It's allowed or it's available for all users or organizations all over the world. And it's located on the premises of the cloud provider. It will be located on the premises of the cloud provider. May be owned by a private company as Microsoft, academic institution, maybe university or whatever, or maybe multiple of owners. Easy setup and inexpensive for the customer. If you want to connect to any public cloud as Office 365 or CRM, Salesforce, or whatever, then the setup is very easy and it's not expensive. It depends upon monthly base, and this it will be somehow not expensive. Pay only the service consumed, pay as you use or pay as you go, and you will have to pay only for this service which you pay for. In the private cloud, it's totally opposite to the public cloud. This is owned and controlled by a single entity. It's only one organization which we have the private cloud. We are interested in the features and characteristics of the cloud computing, but we are not able to share any other companies or organizations or customers the same shared resources for maybe security issues or governance, compliance, and so on. Then they will have their own private cloud. They will have their own private cloud. And it can be used for own purpose, for own applications and their business only. And it can be operated by the same company or by a third party. It depends. If they have the skills and competence which they can manage the cloud applications and infrastructure, it will be great. Otherwise, we can hire the operations to a third party. It can be located on or off premises. This means that if I am a company and I am interested in private cloud because my data is secure and it's considered classified and I don't want to share it with any public cloud, then I can install a private cloud in my site, in my data center, or I can host it in a different cloud provider. This cloud provider, it will not be a public cloud. It does not mean that you will be shared with other customers. No, this devices will be only dedicated for you. Then it will be seems as a private cloud for you. When the hosts and the resources pool, it will be only dedicated for you. It will not be shared with someone else. And this feature, of course, can be used with different departments for the same company, finance, IT, HR, or it may be a holding company, and this holding company, we have multiple companies working for them. Then each company we can access this private cloud. Community cloud, this community cloud, it will be used for similar organizations of the same type, universities, hospitals, whatever any or not any, multiple organizations, we have the same characteristics, schools, education, universities, hospitals, dispensaries, and so on. When community cloud, it's very close to the private cloud. But in private cloud, it's only single entity who owned this network. In the community cloud, it will be multiple entities. For example, here it can be if universities, for example, in Saudi Arabia, we may have 100 universities, then this means that these 100 universities, they can, all of them share together and they can utilize this community cloud together with the services, data, and so on. Because we have common share for all of them, then we can utilize all this infrastructure together. It can be managed by the member organization, one of the universities, one of the hospitals, whatever, or it can be assigned to third party. Again, can be assigned to third party. And also it can be off or on premises. It can be hosted in one of these universities, or it can be hosted in different locations as a cloud provider. And again, all the infrastructures, data, applications, it will be totally dedicated for this community, and it will never be shared with any other customers rather than the members of the community. Hybrid cloud. Hybrid cloud, the concept, it's very simple. Hybrid cloud, it's mix and match between any of the two, hybrid cloud, it will consist of, composed of two models from the models which we discussed. Maybe public and private, maybe private and community, whatever. When any two models together, it will be as hybrid cloud. When do we need to use the hybrid cloud? The hybrid cloud, for example, I have my private cloud. I am represent an organization which it has very high secure classified data, and I am not able by law to share this information on the cloud, even if I will provide the necessary controls or safeguards or whatever. Then I had my private cloud. And this data, it will be hosted in my site. For some reasons, I may need to have a public cloud. Why? Because not all your data are critical. Not the data, all the data are classified as critical. Then I can have some of the data which is classified as critical, I can put it in the private cloud. While the other data, which is classified as normal or low or general usage or whatever, I can install this in the private, or sorry, in the public cloud. And this, it will save a lot of money, because if I have, for example, suppose that usually I'm asking my customers, if you want to understand the concept of the public and the private cloud, what is the data size in your My Documents in the desktop? We are saying 10G. Okay, great. And what is the size of the data which you can classify it as confidential and you don't want anyone to see it or share it? Let's say it can be 2 or 3 GB. It may be some photos for my wife, for my daughter, some financial calculations, Excel sheets, and so on. But I tell him, just imagine now, I am telling you, please, you can host 7 GB of your data on the cloud, and the cloud service provider, you will be responsible for this data for backup, for disaster recovery, for make sure that this data is available for you at any time, and so on. And only you have to care about the 3 GB which you consider as private in your notebook, and you have to provide the storage for only 3 GB instead of 10 GB. You have to provide operations for 3 GB as storage, as anti-virus, anti-malware, backup, and so on. And this means that life, it will be very easy and it will be very simple. This is the main difference between the public, private, hybrid, and community. Any questions?
Yes, Usama. Regarding the community cloud.
Okay.
When you have a community like hospital community, or it could be what else, like for example, a firm of lawyers, like if they have those kind of community clouds, like for universities and things.
It's not public. Yeah, you cannot say, okay, please, I want to connect to a community cloud for Saudi Arabia universities, for example. Of course, this it's not the community concept. Community concept that they are only the members of these sectors, they will be able to access the data and the applications, not the other people.
Oh, okay. Now it is clear. Yeah, thank you. So it's like basically only the organizations which have tie-up among themselves, they will be forming a community cloud. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, great. We have some. security concepts which we want to take it in our consideration. This is a very important issue, and we want to understand now what are the security concepts related to the cloud. Now we are a little bit familiar with the cloud. We can understand that we can have public, private, community, hybrid. We can have IaaS, PaaS, SaaS, and so on. Now let's go further step to the security concepts for the cloud computing. What are these security concepts? Number one, cryptography, encryption, data encryption. As we mentioned, the data, it's shared between multi-tenancy, which means multiple users, and we want to have isolation and separation of the data between these users. And of course, the best way to take this step, it will be through the cryptography or encryption. Access control, authentication, authorizations, and accounting. Data and media sanitation. As we mentioned, it's very important to make sure that you are able to delete all your data from the cloud service provider when you quit this cloud service provider to move to another one, or to change the hosting model, for example. Network security and virtualization security. These are very important because network security and virtualization security, this it will, if your application, it will never be secure except if the basic infrastructure, which is considered as a backbone of running these applications, are secure. Yani suppose that your network, it's not secure, that the data, it can be leaked through the network by reconnaissance the data or capturing the data, because the data, it's moving in clear text, when this means that your application it's not secure. If virtualization it's not secure, this it will be crisis. Just imagine, my friends, if the virtualization infrastructure it's not secure, if the hypervisor it's not secure, and there is a hacker who was able to take a control over the hypervisor, then this means that you will be able to take a control over all the servers hosted in the cloud service provider. Just imagine what will happen if a cloud service provider was able to catch or get all these informations from the cloud service provider. Okay, let's go in details for each one of them. Cryptography. What is the feature of the cryptography? With encrypt the data. That the data, it will be changed from the clear text format into a cipher format. Then if the data is captured by some hackers, he will not be able to read it. Okay. In encryption, we have two different issues which we have to concentrate on. What are they? The encryption and the key management. Again, what do we mean? Any encryption, my friends, it depends upon two different components, algorithm and key for encryption. This means that the algorithm, it will do the process of the cipher. It will do the process of the encryption. But this encryption, it's the algorithm, it's a standard, maybe DES, 3DES, AES, blowfish, whatever it is. This is a standard. There is no difference between whatever any algorithms it will be used in Saudi Arabia, in Egypt, in America, in Europe, wherever it is, and whatever it is, it will be the same, and it's a standard. Right. If it's a standard, then how we can say that I will not be able to decrypt the data? I will not be able to decrypt the data because the encryption, it does not depend upon the activities of the process of the encryption. There is one factor, there is another factor, which is the key, Here the key, it will define how the data, it will be encrypted. Let me give you an example. All of us know the alphabetics. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, and so on. Now I will tell you, I will make displacement. The encryption key, it will be displacement. What do you mean? When I tell you a specific letter, then it will be a different letter. When I tell you, for example, letter D, I did not mean D. I mean another letter. Okay, this is considered the encryption algorithm. That's great. I can understand. But which one? When I say D, is it E or F or G or maybe C? Aha. Then we will come to the second factor, which it will define exactly the method of encryption, which will be the key. The key, I will say, for example, +2. What +2? This means that when I tell you a letter, I mean that you have to add another 2. I say D, then actually the letter which I mean it, or the actual one, it will be 1, 2, it will be F. Then if I want to write, for example, USA, this USA, this will be clear text, this is a message. And if I want to send this message to someone, then I will say I will use the displacement +2. Then I have to say this one, USA, and this HIJKLMNO P Q R S T U. When U, it will be S. U, it will be S. S, it will be Q. A, it will be Y. Then this is the cipher which it will reach to the other side. This is the encrypted. This is encrypted. When this is the message which the encrypted, which it will be able to reach to the other side. When the other side he will receive it, he know that it is used by +2. Then what he have to do, he have to make -2. If you make -2, he will get this USA again. Then, as we mentioned that it's very important in the encryption to understand the components of the encryption. Key and algorithm. Algorithm, standard. We don't have anything to do with here. DES, 3DES, AES, Bluefish, whatever it is, RSA, whatever it is. And we have the key management. The key management, this is the key which it will be used to encrypt the data and keep it secret between the stakeholders. Okay? The second component, it is the access control. In the access control, if you remember, we mentioned something before as IA. Do you know what is IAAA? What is IAAA?
Identification, authentication, authorization,
and accounting.
accountability.
Yeah, accountability, correct.
Okay, that's right. Identification, who you are. Authorization, prove your identity. Authorization, what you are authorized to do. Accountability, what did you do? It's so simple like that. Then in the access control, we have to provision the account. This, I joined a new company, I want to create my account, then you have to prove yourself, you have to show them the contract and who is your manager. They have to contact the manager. What are the permissions which he should see? Or it may be depend that you are a member of the operations team or security team, then you have to see the specific information and so on. Directory services, the directory service similar to the Active Directory, and it store the username, passwords, and all your account attributes, which it can be used for authentication and authorization. Administrative and privileged access with the administrative control. This is the administrative control which we have permission for the network administration and management. And of course, these accounts are very important because if you have a control on these accounts, you will be able to make a lot of changes in the infrastructure and the application and the services. And usually, the administrators and privileged access, we are using the 2FA. We will use the 2FA, the two-factor authentication. Finally, you have the authorization. And this, it will be the permission which the users can do on the network. We can access specific applications, we can access specific services, we can access specific database, we can access specific devices, and so on. For the second concept, the data and media sanitation, and the concept of the vendor lock-in for data. You remember we discussed this concept today and day before yesterday, and we mentioned that vendor lock-in, that you are strictly locked in with a specific vendor. You will not be able to migrate because you are not able to migrate the applications for some specific or appropriate settings, proprietary settings, or it may be the data which has proprietary settings and you will not be able to migrate it into a different cloud service provider. This is a very important concept. You have to take it in your consideration when you will make an agreement with the cloud service provider. You have to check how the cloud service provider, he will deal with the data, how he will deal with the applications. In some situations, they are provide some features by good intent. What do we mean by good intent? We mean that we don't want to provide these services because we want you to be locked with them, then you will not be able to move to another cloud service provider. But we are providing these features which create the lock-in because we are trying to make life easy. We want to provide more performance. We want to provide more functionality, more features, and so on. And this, you have to do your exercise before going further and sign with the cloud service provider. You have to make sure that the cloud service provider, he will not make any proprietary settings or structure for the data and the applications. Data sanitation, this is very important. How you make sure that the data, it will be deleted from your cloud service provider. We have three concepts in the data sanitation. Number one, the hard disk crashing or degaussing. Crashing, that you will crash the hard disk. Physical crashing the hard disk. And this means that the hard disk, it will not be accessible. And of course, the degaussing, that you will what we can say, provide, or you put the hard disk in a magnetic field. You put a hard disk in a magnetic field, then this hard disk, it will erase all the data because, you know, by the end of the day, this data is stored in form of 0, 1, which is a magnetic field as well, then it will spoil the data. But of course, you will not be able to follow this concept in a cloud service provider, right? It's impossible to go to cloud service provider and tell him, please, I want to spoil or I want to cache your hard disks. He will kick you out of the data center. He paid a small portion for his storage, and very simply you are saying, I want to cache your hard disks. Then this option is not valid in this situation. What are the other options? The other options, be overriding. But the data, it can be override. And this concept, it's okay, but it's not the outstanding concept. This concept, it means that you have to override your data with a specific data pattern, maybe 0, 1s or whatever, any other data. In some standards, with some standards, they are saying that to override the data once, it will not be enough. You have to override it multiple times. It may be 2 or 3 times. Then in this case, it will be in this case, it will be data. It will be secure and it will be, you will not be able to recover this data again. The best method, which is considered as the outstanding methods for the cloud service providers, it will be the cryptography erasing. What is the cryptography erasing? It's very simple. You have to encrypt it. Whatever any data you have it in the cloud service provider, you have to encrypt it. And damage the encryption key. Then this means that the data, it cannot be decrypted. Even if the hacker, he was able to capture the data, or if the cloud service provider captured the data, he will not be able to retrieve the data because the key, encryption key, it's missed, and we will not be able to recover the data once more. Any questions?
No, sir, it's pretty much clear.
Excellent. Network security. Network security, of course, I am quite sure that most of you are familiar with this concept of network security. Network security, we have a lot of concepts or security concepts in securing your network. Number one, zoning. You have to divide your network into zones. It may be external zones, which is connected to the internet. DMZ zone, which is a buffer zone between the external zone and the internal zone, which is hosting your servers and services. And finally, the internal zone, which is hosting your servers and what we can say, the applications and the users and so on. Okay, this is great. We have another concept rather than the zoning, for example, to have a firewall. That these zones, it can be, the traffic between these zones can be controlled by using a firewall, and this firewall, it can be a next generation firewall. Next generation firewall, it will provide anti-spamware, anti-malware, IPS, firewall policies, and so on. Another concept to add IPS, the intrusion prevention system. If it discovered any attacks in the application level, then it will be able to drop this attack and protect your network, and so on. Then these are the concepts which it can be used for the network security. Again, there is one main concept which it can be followed up, the encryption, where all the data exchanged by the network, it can be encrypted. When if there is any hacker, he can capture the data, he will not be able to utilize it or retrieve it because it's encrypted. And the way when we say hacker, it does not mean that it's an external hacker. It may be an internal hacker or disgruntled employee, which he can capture the data and he can sell it in the future or whatever. We will come to the concept of the virtualization security. And virtualization security, this again, very, very, very important topic in the cloud service providers. And you have to understand the concept behind the virtualization. We have two types of virtualizations, type 1 hypervisor and type 2 hypervisors. Type 1 hypervisor, this you will have the hardware. This is the server, which you have it, which it has processor, memory, so on, and everything. Then you will have here the hypervisor. This is your hypervisor, the software of the hypervisor, which is installed directly on the hardware. Then you will have the operating system. Here you will have the operating system. The second method, it would be the type 2 hypervisor. Type 2 hypervisor, you have the hardware, and over the hardware, you will have the operating system, and over the operating system, you will have the hypervisor. The hypervisor, this it will be the software which is responsible to split the host or the hardware into multiple servers. And I'm quite sure that you are familiar with this. Yani, in type 2 hypervisor, this is the hypervisor which software which you install on your cloud, your desktop, or maybe your notebook, and you can say, okay, I want to create one server, and this server I want to run Linux, and you can install the Linux. Then when you want to run the Linux, you open the hypervisor software, the server, start the server, then you are able to run the Linux. In the type 1 hypervisor, this it will be totally different. The hypervisor will not be installed on any operating system. The hypervisor, it will be installed directly on the hardware, and after we install the software version of the hypervisor, we'll be able to install the operating system. Yeah?
It is little too fast for me.
Okay. We have two types of hypervisors. Hypervisor 1 and hypervisor 2, type 1, type 2. Type 1, you will have the host server. This server, it may have 20 processor, may have 100 GB RAM, it may have 100 terabyte hard disk. Then we have to install the hypervisor software, and over the hypervisor, you have to install the operating system, maybe Linux, Windows, whatever, and you start to create your virtual machines. This type 1. Type 2, it's something different. Type 2, you have your host, maybe your notebook, you installed the operating system, maybe Windows 10, then you install the software, maybe Hyper-V or whatever, any software. And when you install this software, under this software, which is running on your notebook operating system, you can create some servers, whatever the type of servers. You can install Linux, you can install other operating system, you can install the same operating, whatever it is, because this, it will be independent on your machine. Now, my question, which one is more secure, type 1 or type 2?
Type 2?
Type 1 maybe.
Type 1, why?
Because the operating system is coming on the last layer. That's why.
Okay, any other opinion? Any other opinion? Okay, type 1, of course, it is more secure. Why? Because as Samir, he mentioned, the key, or the operating system, it does not depend upon the operating system. It is direct with the hardware. Then whatever any bugs in the operating system, it will not affect the hypervisor. But in type 2, whatever any bugs in the operating system, it will affect the hypervisor, because the hypervisor is installed on the operating system itself. And this is the reason why type 1 hypervisor is more secure than type 2 hypervisor. Any questions?
Yeah, it is clear regarding hypervisors. But what about the containers? You have mentioned about hypervisor 1 and hypervisor 2. There is another thing there which called containers. What it is for?
Containers, it's a different concept similar to the virtualization. You know, in virtualization, what we are doing, you have one big machine and you have virtual VMs. In the containers, it's a concept, different concept in programming, where you can run your application in a separate and isolated container when it is independent on the operating systems. Mainly container, if you want to have more details about it, you have to work with the concept of programming. It will provide you more information about the concept.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. What are the common threads relevant to the cloud computing? Of course, the data breaches. Data, it can be breached, and it can someone take access for the data. Insufficient credential and access management, with insufficient controls or due diligence for the IaaA, the identity, authentication, authorization, and accounting. Insecure interfaces and APIs. This is a very important issue. This is a very important issue because all the services will be provided to the customers through the cloud service provider. It will come through interface and application program interface. Whatever any service, even its application or management infrastructure management plan or whatever, these are considered as API, application program interface. We have their infrastructure. We will provide API. This is considered as an interface, which you can open it on the browser and you can make the configuration. And using this API, you will make the configuration to their infrastructure. Then if these APIs and interfaces are not secure or they are not up to the standard security level as recommended by the manufacturer, then this means that your infrastructure, it will be can be compromised and it will not be secure. And we will cover more information about the APIs and interfaces in the application security module, inshallah. System vulnerabilities, I'm quite sure that you are aware about it. By the end of the day, whatever any hardware, software, service, library, whatever it is, it have a software base, and whatever any software development, it may have some vulnerability which it can cause harm for the users if these vulnerabilities are exploited by any hackers or any threats. Account hijacking, if you have any accounts or username and password which is utilized to access your services, and by using a man in the middle attack, and we were able to catch this username and password, or even catch the session, terminate your session and take over this session, then they will be able to access the applications and the data. Malicious insiders, this is very important because malicious insiders, you have to think about it very carefully, because just imagine the cloud service provider, we have employees, and these employees, we have valid credentials to the network when they are able to access your data. And this will require some security controls and considerations for the security. APT, advanced persistent threads. These are the threads which is logged into your network and stay resident in your network. They can collect the data, they can cause some harm for your network, and unfortunately you are not able to know that you have any resident applications on your servers or services or applications. We are collecting data and causing some harms for you, and some situations they may steal the data, or they may format the data after some time, or as you here, I'm quite sure that you hear about these ransom attacks, which it will encrypt your data, and it will tell you if you want to get your data back, you have to pay us some money. Then we will provide you the key which we used for encryption. Then you will be able to decrypt the data. Data loss. This data loss, it can be a form of storage failure, it can be server or hardware failure, and so on. Insufficient due diligence, as we mentioned, that if you are not able to do your exercise and to protect your network in a proper way and check all the possibilities for your protecting your data, then this means that you are not doing the proper or sufficient due diligence, and this in USA and in Europe, it have penalties, and it reach up to a few years in the prison. Abuse and cloud service of cloud service. In some situation, there may be a smart hacker. He will connect as a normal user, and he will try to run some application which it consume processors. When he rent the machine for 10 processor, for example, or let's say 3 processor, and he will run some specific processes, and these processes, what it will do, it will utilize processors. Then after some time, the 3 processors, it will not be enough, and it will require additional processor. And we mentioned that the characteristics of the cloud computing, that the resources, it can be increased automatically based on the usage and the requirements. Then it can utilize 4 processor, 5 processor, 6, 7, 8, and of course, by increasing these processes, number of processes, instead of running single process, you can run dual process, 4 process, 5, 8, and so on. Then you will find that the number of processors required, it can reach 30, 40, 50. This means that it will affect the availability of these processors for the other users. Of course, this is not an critical threat, because usually the cloud service provider, they have to put something called limits, that this is the maximum number of resources which it can be utilized by single customer. And we will cover this later in the next few slides. Denial of service. I'm quite sure that you are aware about the denial of service, that the service is not available for any reason. It may be network bandwidth utilization, it may be processor utilization, memory utilization, and so on. Mainly here with cloud service providers, it will be network bandwidth utilization, because if they can able to initiate DDoS, distributed denial of service, for the network bandwidth, when the legitimate users, they will not find the adequate bandwidth to access their applications and data. Finally, the concept of the shared technology issues. Of course, shared technology, this is one of the main concerns for the cloud computing. By the end of the day, if we have single host, and this host hosting 5 VMs for different users, basically all the users, although they are 5 users and we are separated, but by the end of the day, they are using the same memory. We are using the same memory of the host. Then if they have any problem with the memory, and there is any buffer overflow or whatever, and one of the users was able to take control over the full memory of the host, then this means that he will be able to see some information which it may have critical information, encryption keys, authentication credentials, and so on. And of course, this it will be one of the shared technology issues which it should be taken in consideration as a common thread for the cloud computing. I think, unfortunately, we are 9 o'clock. We finished, but I think we will not be able to finish the course as we planned in 3 weeks. 3 days. And unfortunately, I think we have to extend it a little bit. We may need other 3 days as well. And for me, I don't have any problem. Usually I am welcome these options if it will add a value for the trainees. Just think about it, and let's take a decision day after tomorrow what will be the next step. But of course, we did not finalize the module number 1, and the course it's 5 modules, when this means that we still need some more times. Okay.